Imagine landing one of the most coveted jobs on Earth. You work at OpenAI, Google DeepMind, or Anthropic. Your salary is absurd. Your stock options are the kind that make group chats go silent. And every morning, you walk into a building full of people who are quite literally building the future. Then one day, you leave. Not because you got a better offer, not because you burned out, because you think the people in charge are moving too fast, the safeguards are too thin, and what's coming next may be way bigger than the public understands. That is the pattern we keep seeing in AI. Not random turnover, but repeated exits from people close to the core. And when the engineers who know the machine best start sounding less like evangelists and more like whistleblowers, that should probably get our attention. To understand why this feels different, we have to go back to one paper with the most underwhelming title ever. Attention is all you need. In 2017, 8 researchers published it and introduced the transformer architecture, the breakthrough that kicked open the door to modern generative AI. Instead of trudging through language one token at a time like older systems, transformers handled context far more efficiently and scaled in a way previous approaches just didn't. At the time, it looked like elite math for elite nerds. In hindsight, it was one of those moments where the future quietly entered the room and nobody outside the lab realized it yet. And then the curve bent upward, fast. Models went from finishing your sentence to writing code, passing exams, generating images, mimicking voices, and talking in a tone that made people feel weirdly seen. But wow, part matters. Because the story at AI is not just about intelligence. It is about influence. The 2026 International AI Safety Report warns that general-purpose AI can be used to manipulate beliefs and behavior without people's full awareness or consent, that malicious actors can use it for social engineering, and that manipulative AI content may sail from individual exploitation to systemic erosion of trust. It also notes that, in experimental settings, AI-generated content can influence people's beliefs at least as effectively as non-expert humans. So this is no longer just, wow, the chatbot is smart. It is, wow, this thing can steer people. That is a very different genre. Now enter OpenAI, the lab that began with the almost mythic Silicon Valley premise that maybe the people creating super powerful AI should not be doing it purely for profit. That ideal got stress-tested hard. Microsoft invested heavily. OpenAI's products exploded into public life, and the center of gravity shifted from cautious stewardship to rapid deployment at planetary scale. That tension finally blew into public view in November 2023, when OpenAI's board abruptly fired Sam Altman, saying he had not been consistently candid in his communications with them. Then came the most chaotic 5 days in modern tech. Employee revolts, investor pressure, board chaos, and Altman's return. He won, the board lost. And the message heard across the industry was simple. When safety, governance collides with momentum, momentum is very hard to beat. After that, the departure started to look less like office politics and more like a pattern. In May 2024, Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI co-founder and chief scientist, left the company. Days later, Leike, who co-led the super alignment effort, resigned and said that 50 culture and processes had taken a backseat to shiny products. Soon after, OpenAI disbanded the super alignment team entirely and replaced it with a new safety and security committee chaired by, among others, Sam Altman himself. That may sound like normal corporate restructuring, but to critics, it looked like the people who were supposed to slow the car down were leaving, while the people hitting the gas were now also in charge of the brakes. Not exactly comforting. And it didn't stop there. Daniel Kopitajlo, a governance researcher at OpenAI, resigned in 2024 and later became one of the most visible public critics of frontier AI development, saying he wanted the freedom to speak openly about the risks. Time reported that he refused to sign a non-disparagement clause that would have cost him around $2 million in equity. Later in 2024, Miles Brundage, OpenAI's longtime policy research lead, also left. At a certain point, this stops looking like a few sensitive people having a bad week. It starts to look like a structural split inside the most important AI labs in the world. One camp believes we are in an existentially serious transition and need stronger constraints. The other believes shipping fast is the only way to stay in the game. Then there is Geoffrey Hinton, the man the media keeps calling the godfather of AI, which sounds dramatic until you realize he kind of earned it. In 2023, Hinton left Google so he could speak more freely about the dangers of the technology he helped create. He warned that AI could flood the internet with convincing false text and images, making it harder to know what is true, and said it was difficult to see how bad actors could be stopped from using it for bad things. His concern was never just killer robots jumping out of the dark. It was something arguably creepier. Systems that can reason in language, imitate expertise, and persuade at massive scale. In other words, not metal monsters, but persuasion engines. Way less cinematic, way more realistic. And while the safety debate got louder, the incentives got louder too. In 2025, OpenAI won a $200 million U.S. Defense Department contract for AI tools. By early 2026, Reuters reported that OpenAI had reached a deal to deploy its models on classified government cloud networks. At the same time, Anthropic became embroiled in a major dispute with the Pentagon over usage restrictions, with Reuters reporting that the clash centered on the company's resistance to uses involving autonomous weapons and surveillance. This is the part of the story where every idealistic, let's be careful, speech runs headfirst into geopolitics, defense budgets, and competitive pressure. Once AI becomes infrastructure for power, nobody wants to be the side that voluntarily slows down. So why are some of the smartest people in AI panicking? Not because they think the apocalypse is tomorrow, and not because every lab is hiding a sentient supervillain in a server rack. It's because they face several risks hitting at once. Systems getting more capable faster than oversight can keep up. Tools that can manipulate and persuade at scale. Companies under huge pressure to commercialize. And governments pulling frontier AI into military and geopolitical competition. The panic is not really about one evil machine. It's about a world becoming dependent on systems we don't fully understand, can't reliably cast in the real world, and are already too incentivized to slow down. Maybe this is the usual tech cycle. Hype, fear, money, drama, repeat. Maybe in 10 years, this era will look like early internet panic with better graphics. But when founders, safety researchers, and pioneers like Hinton keep stepping out to warn the rest of us, the right response probably isn't to shrug and say, seems chill. The people closest to the engine are saying the vehicle is accelerating faster than the steering is improving. And if the people who built the map are now arguing about where the road leads, and the real question may not be whether AI is getting smarter. It may be whether our institutions are growing up fast enough to handle what they've unleashed.